Good morning, traders. Today is Friday, January 20th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. Sorry, I'm running a bit late this morning. Didn't catch the opening bell, but guess what? It doesn't actually matter. Why? Because we're inside of yesterday's range. And so we're expecting a chop zone, a chop zone. We know, just like the overnight market, did nothing but bounce up and down inside yesterday's range. All that the market will do to this morning is bounce up and down inside of the overnight range until it either breaks above or below the high or the low. So really there's no rush this morning. We can take our time and wait for the market to give us a signal of what is the highest probability break from this chop zone. So the first signal we're looking at is potential support and resistance. The first major support is going to be right here around 39.18. And the first major resistance is actually pretty much where we got smacked down, just above the opening price, 39.32. That's the chop zone. So in between there's really no way to predict where it's going to flip in reverse, where it's going to find resistance and come back down. So we kind of just have to wait. And whichever one of those support or resistance that it breaks first, it then increases the odds it will test the overnight high or the overnight low. And then once that happens, we get a signal moving forward. So if we push below the overnight low and we find new sellers there, we look to test yesterday's low. If we push above the overnight high and find buyers there, yesterday's high. In between, chop. All right, so we're not really getting a bounce here at support, increasing the odds. We need to head down and test that overnight low. So first we're looking to repair the week low at 39.14 and then push below 39.11. And if we get below 39.11 and we find new sellers there, I'll get bearish to test yesterday's low. If not, if we just kind of poke below there and pull back up, more chop. That's the repair of the week reference. Leaving behind another week low. something you would expect to see in a chop zone. Cortman says, how do you feel about yesterday's move to come back up and close the gap? 50-50, my friend. I look at this overnight activity. That is a bell-shaped curve. That is telling me that this market doesn't know which way it wants to go. Does it want to continue the momentum lower, or does it want to head back up and repair that weakness? Uncertainty. So, like I said, I'm going to take it one tick at a time. We get below that low and we find new sellers. I'm going to look to test yesterday's low. We get below there and find sellers. I'm going to continue lower from there. And vice versa to the upside. I'm not going to make an assumption right now because they could do either direction. Look at all the buying. Look at all the selling. And all of it at the exact same level. So until we get away from here, who knows? I bet they'll chop it up. Mark says, front run of the low. Always, it's a chop zone. Watch the computers. Get the people long. Then get the people short. Then get them long. Then get them short. Then get them long. Then get them short. Then get them long. Then get short. And then it'll break one way or another. And we'll know because it'll get above the overnight high and find support, or below the overnight low and find resistance. In between there, we won't play the guessing game. We'll just assume chop. All right, so the first potential signal we could get is if the market finds resistance at the half back here. Often if it's going to break the chop zone one direction or another, it will turn half back into support or resistance beforehand. So if we test the half back here at 39.21 and that holds as resistance, we know we're heading back down towards the lows once again. If we pass right back through, more chop. Chris says, so if the market stays in the chop zone all day, will you not take a trade? Well, this chop zone, that's impossible. It's too tight of a range. But technically, yeah. I mean, there are days where the market will make a huge initial balance, right? Like the first hour of the day, it'll make a big move up or whatever. It'll start to look like it's going to go higher, and then it'll pull back down, and then in the C period, you print inside that initial balance, and then all day long, the market just goes inside that range. And those are incredibly frustrating days for me. Or I often just don't take trades because there's just no way to calculate the probabilities. The way I choose whether to go long or short is based on the statistical probability of the success rate that I have with that setup. I have yet to this day to find a setup that consistently works with a statistical probability within a chop zone. That's why I do not enter trades. If I found an edge, a statistical edge that I could play day in and day out, again and again, when the market is in one of these zones and I would consistently make money, well then sure, I'd play that game. I have yet to discover such a strategy. However, I have learned the patience of sitting by and waiting, of not letting my brain go nuts, trying to go, oh, are they going to take it higher? Are they going to go lower? What about this? What about that? What about da-da-da-da? And just waiting often puts me in a perfect position to grab once it breaks lower, finds that resistance, or it breaks higher and finds that support. I'm perfectly ready to take advantage of the real opportunity, which is the break out of the chop zone, not the mess in the middle. Unless you're a scalper, unless that's your game, of course. Okay, so there you go. The halfback did not hold as resistance, so that increases the odds of more chop. We're now heading up to test the high. Pavel says weak high. Yeah, you could consider that weak because they only got one tick above the opening price. Kathy, are you leaning a little more bullish or bearish? This is about the most unsatisfying answer I could give you, Kathy. I am not leaning more bullish or bearish. I am literally 50-50. I could make an argument for both things, right? I can make an argument that this move is reaching exhaustion and needs to come back and first fill the gap up to the low from 2 days ago, and then see if we can get back into that range. I could easily make that argument. But at the same time, I could make the argument that the trend will continue and that we still have the momentum. Like I could see it 50-50 either way. Honestly, I could see it 33% head up to fill the gap, 33% go lower, 33% we just literally trade inside yesterday's range all day. It is Friday. And sometimes when you make a big move, the way the market balances off that move, instead of pulling back up with price to repair the weakness, it just goes sideways. and it repairs with time. So like I come into today, 33% we go sideways, 33% we go higher, 33% we go lower. Who knows? But here's the cool part, right? There will be opportunities to know which it is. If they try to take it higher and they fail, we know they're either going lower or they're going sideways. If they try to take it lower and they fail, we know they're either going higher or going sideways. And so we can just figure out which is which. And then we know how to play them. We have a strategy to play if it starts trending lower. We have a strategy to play if it starts trending higher. And we have a strategy to play if it just goes sideways. So the best thing to do, if I can play all three scenarios, but at this moment I don't know which of the three is happening, is to just sit back, relax, and wait until I know. And then I will automatically, the second the market tells me what it's doing, I will know how to play it. Because I've been sitting and waiting and making my plan. Jim Dalton calls it waiting for the trade to come to you. Instead of looking for a trade, just wait until the market suddenly tells you, oh, hey, look at this. An opportunity. So once again, we're back at the halfback. Can we turn it into support? Or do we chop right back through? Roger, will I discount the move if it shoots above or below based on the news at 10? Not really. If it looks above the overnight high because of the news and then it pulls right back down, it's delivering the same message to me either way. I don't really care why the market comes up here. I just care what happens when we get here. Are there new buyers? So whether they're buying because of the news or they're buying because, I don't know, they just got their paycheck today and they want to put some money in their 401k, whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter why they buy. All that I care about is whether they do or they don't. So if it pushes up and it comes right back down, well, I know there were no buyers up there. Market's not trying to go higher. So it's either going sideways or lower. So on and so forth. So I am making note that we're starting to get this little volume cliff here. And where is it? Literally right at the area where we spent all the time and brought in all the volume in the overnight. So this could potentially be a node of support building here. Of course, now if that volume cliff breaks, if that node cannot hold, well, we know where all their stops are. So the chop will continue. LA says NQ is breaking the overnight high. Ooh, NQ just filled a gap from yesterday. That's bullish. All right, so NQ giving us some signals. So we made a higher high and a higher low in the day. We have value overlapping to higher. So that tells us that the momentum to the downside is over, increasing the odds that the market is either going to try to go up or go sideways today. We just filled the gap to yesterday's low. So we now have taken away that magnet to tug on price, to pull it up towards the previous day's range. So the question becomes, do we get buyers up here in yesterday's range or not? Does this become resistance and just smack price right back down? If it does, well, then we're looking at a sideways day. We're looking at a rotational day. But if they can get the market up into yesterday's range and bring new buyers in up here, you're looking to start trying to head higher. Backfill those single prints to 11,586. So it's a little bit bullish to see in that we've just significantly reduced the odds that the market is going to continue lower today. The ES remains in the chop zone, and we're now testing that node for support at 39.25. Can they hold it? The $6 million man says Google earnings dragged it up. Well, I don't really care. That's fine with me. It doesn't bother me in the world why the buyers are buying. All I care is what they're doing. They filled the gap. All right, so that node did not hold as support. You know what that means? More chop. They're not ready to take it higher yet. Geo says, can I check liquidity levels above or below on Bookmap? Sure. I'd say, again, pretty even Steven. A little more below. I truly believe the market doesn't know where it wants to go right now. We got to break out of the chop zone. They may want to take it sideways all day. Who knows? Q is bullish. ES is choppy. Ross B says, that was around the current value area high. Should it retrace back to the value area low? No. That's the thing about a chop zone that I'm trying to explain. If you're trying to come up with like a system, if you're like, what's the thing? Like if there's resistance at the value area high, does that mean it's going to go to the value area low? If it does this, does that mean that? If it does that, nope. No. I've looked and looked and looked and looked. There's only two things that mean anything when you're in a chop zone. Thing one, the halfback acting as support or resistance as a first clue that the market will break out, and then the market successfully breaking out. That's it. Those are the only two things in a chop zone. Everything else is completely 100% random, and that's why it keeps chopping. Because it keeps convincing people, oh, resistance at the value area high. I'll short to the value area low. And then they can't get down there, and then they get squeezed when it comes back up. That's the game it plays, is that it fools you into thinking you're seeing a pattern, you're seeing an opportunity, you're understanding something. But it's very simple. As long as it remains inside the chop zone, you don't know. You have no clue where it's going to flip in reverse, when it's going to flip in reverse, or how far it's going to go when it does. But the good news is there will be plenty of opportunities once it breaks out. Geo says, disregard even the late POC for the chop zone. The late POC. Yeah, I mean, the POC means nothing when you're chopping. The POC only comes into play after you've begun a trend, and then that trend has come to an end. Obviously, you have not begun a trend if you're still chopping. I'll say it again, guys. You can ask me 1,000 questions. You can ask the same question 1,000 different ways. My answer will remain the same because I stare at this chart every day the exact same way. I use the same system of analysis again and again and again in every market every day the exact same way. I know what works and what doesn't. Inside a chop zone, there's nothing but either the halfback or the breakout. Nothing else. Don't look, don't fuss, don't fear. Just wait. Please don't spend a year listening to me before you finally figure that out. Look at the chat. There's probably somebody today that said it. Every day I talk about this, somebody goes in and goes, yep, I've been following Charles for 8 months now, and I finally figured out it's not worth it trying to guess in a chop zone. It's like, don't do that to yourself. Just please learn from my experience. Don't waste your time trying to guess in a chop zone. Let the market do its thing. Then when it tells you, look for the trade. So there's your 10 a.m. news. Liquidity went dark. The market made a little pop lower, but we remain in the chop zone. So let's see where they take it from here. Okay, so back into the game of probabilities. We waited, and now the market is starting to give us signals, right? We were patient. Now it's getting easier. Why? Well, we have a weak high. That's a magnet pulling on price to the upside. We found support at the halfback. That's a sign we could be trying to break to the upside. And we pulled the value area right up against the high of the day, increasing the odds we need more excess to the upside. So now we've got some probabilities in our favor. Now there's a greater chance that we will at least try to break the overnight high. Same as we had down here before when we almost tried to break the low. We've got a chance to try to break the high. But we can't really get bullish on the day until it happens and we get new buyers. Okay, so the weak high just became a poor high, increasing the odds of repair. Okay, there's the repair. Okay, there's the test of the overnight high. Another weak high. Choppity, choppity, chop, chop. Nope, they only got 200 stops. They can do better than that. Okay, so there we go. Repaired the weak high, and we're above the overnight high. So this is that moment I've been talking about all morning. Can we get new buyers up here above that overnight high? Is it just the stops that get squeezed and then the market pulls right back down into the range? Or do those ticks keep pumping higher and new buyers keep stepping in, bringing in some volume up here above 33? Let's see what happens. Great, MES said, Charles, I let the trade come to me. Well, I'm glad to hear it, brother. Now do that every day for the rest of your life, and you might have a career. What's that I see? New buyers? How could it be? All right. So I am now bullish. I'm looking for the market to stay above the opening price, 39.29, and then head up to test yesterday's high. If they can get above yesterday's high, they'll most certainly try to fill that gap, looking to test 39.44, and then we'll see if we can get back up into the previous day's range. But I am bullish as long as we stay above the opening price to at least try to fill that gap. Tom says, short squeeze? Oh, the short squeeze has only begun. If they can hold above the opening price. Nigel, how can you tell from the chart where the short squeeze will happen? Wherever people would put their stops. So simple question. If people have been shorting today, where do they put their stops? Probably above the overnight high, right? Or maybe above yesterday's high. So if we can get above the overnight high, we're probably going to squeeze the first set of them. If we can get above yesterday's high, we're probably going to squeeze the second set of them, and so on and so forth. If you want to know where shorts will get squeezed, just ask yourself, if you were a short, where would your stop be? That's where the squeeze will take place. We're all looking at the same charts. Pink candle above the overnight high. It's a sign of volume stepping in. If they can hold the ticks, we know it's buyers, which should be bullish. Yes, Trade Monkey. I always need to ask, if I were car keys, where would I be? Your car keys have a mind of their own, huh? All right, moment of truth. We are testing that overnight high, and the ticks are testing the zero line. Do we have buyers here who want to head up and fill that gap above? Dancing right on the razor's edge. Ticks trying to get back above zero. Can they do it? You guys realize I've turned trading into a game show, right? For myself, it's just a game show. Damn. Well, there you go. Back through the opening price. Looks like I'm wrong. Apologies, everyone. We are still in a chop zone. The ticks couldn't hold. That is obviously extremely disappointing news. Having a chop zone that is this pronounced, trying to break lower, failing to break lower, trying to break higher, failing to break higher, on top of the fact that it's a Friday. You got to when what should happens doesn't with the repair of this weakness. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about to have ourselves a boring sideways Friday. A slow, melty sideways Friday. See, it ain't so. So as always, the signals remain the same. If they can get back above the overnight high, this will obviously now likely act as resistance. If they can get through that resistance, then we can be back into trying to repair the weakness above. But because we failed to have the buyers at the overnight high, the higher probability is that we will get resistance and more chop. We tried to push the market higher, didn't have the buyers. We will have to pull it back to find them. It's just the way it goes. Let's take a look at the Q. Let's see how that played out. Okay, Q getting resistance at yesterday's low. So remember the question we were asking with the Q, it was bullish that they were able to fill that gap. But then the question was, could they bring in new buyers inside yesterday's range? The answer was, if they could not, it increases the odds of sideways, right? Because we know they don't want to take the market lower. We got the break of the trend on the daily, higher highs, higher lows, value overlapping higher. So they're not trying to take the market lower, but they're not going to be able to take it higher if they can't bring in the volume inside yesterday's range. So this also looks a little more sideways-y to me. I would say for the Q to get bullish again, I need to see them push above 11,490 and find new buyers up there. Otherwise, I would assume they're just trying to get a little excess and they're going to get smacked right back down. Evolved Monkey says, do you still get frustrated when you get it wrong and the market isn't behaving as you expected? I get that it's a game of probability, but how do you deal with it emotionally? It's a good question. Yes, I do still get, it still annoys me significantly. Ironically, I would say it annoys me much more as a live streamer than it does as a trader. As a trader, accepting the financial loss of a stop filling doesn't really bother me because I know I can win that money back, right? Like I know there's a way to get that money back. I can fix it. I can solve this problem. But reputationally, when I'm live streaming and I'm wrong, there's nothing I can do about it. You all are going to either respect that I had a good premise going in, the premise didn't work out, and that I'm open to change and willing to admit I'm wrong. You know, like I can hope the best that you guys will understand, but I can't control that. And so that's frustrating. But it's in terms of trading, I really do feel like I've reached a point where I don't care. Like I won't enter a trade unless I'm willing to lose the money. So it doesn't really emotionally hurt me to lose the money. I also have just learned from experience I can win it back. All right, well, here we go. Right back to bullish. So now we were able to bring in buyers above that overnight high. We've repaired the first week reference, and we're testing yesterday's high. Or we're heading up to test yesterday's high. If we can get above 39.40, we almost certainly can fill the gap up to 39.44. As that too would be the sign for the ES, the same as it was for the NQ earlier. If we can make a higher high and a higher low and pull value to overlapping to higher, that is a sign the momentum on the ES is also over, increasing the odds that it's going to either go sideways or higher. So as soon as we get above yesterday's high, we can expect we'll get a little bounce, a little spike. And it's all happening at once, man. So now we have one time framing in the C period, also increasing the odds that we're going to fill that gap. All right, guys, and with that, I will bid you all farewell. As far as what to expect moving forward today, it looks like the ES wants to follow suit with the NQ and head up and fill that gap that it left behind from yesterday. We've got a set of single prints right here at 39.31. That will act as strong support. It is also that overnight high where they just moments ago, just seconds ago, built some support up there. So I do think they're going to find support and come back to fill that gap. How much further they can get from there, I do not know. Whether they'll be able to get up into yesterday's range or they'll get rejected like the NQ was earlier. Let's see what's happening now. See, now it's probably back up in there. Yeah. But, you know, in your mind, imagine this C period isn't here. Remember what it looked like when we were trying to poke up into yesterday's range and we were getting rejected. If that starts to happen on the ES, we could have a sideways day. But if they're able to fill that gap and bring in new buyers above 39.44, then we could just start to head on back up test the base of the spike down, backfill the weak reference, test the base of the single prints, next set of single prints, so on and so forth. Okay. So highest probability is either higher or sideways. And what happens to us at yesterday's low, or sorry, at the low from the 18th, will tell us what it's going to be. With that, I bid you farewell. I say goodbye to you. It's worth noting there's only 1 week of these free live streams left. So if you want to make the most of them, you might consider taking the e-course this weekend. There is a link in the top of the chat. You can click on that and then just purchase that e-course for $145. If you purchase that e-course this weekend, it's 4.5 hours long, and you work your way through it, by Monday morning, you'll be able to absorb a lot more from these live streams. Something to consider. Have a great weekend, everyone.